Hi everyone, this is Adam, and I'm here to tell you the 3 reasons why I'm going to see Steve Bannon debate David Frum at the Munk Debate on the Rise of Populism on November 2nd in Toronto, and why you should tune in. So, the latest edition of the Munk Debates in Toronto is causing a bit of a stir. The series itself is great. I've been several times. I've seen amazing, smart people debate very interesting ideas on geopolitics, political correctness, religion, lots more. People like Christopher Hitchens, Tony Blair, Jordan Peterson, Fareed Zakaria, and others. This time, it's going to be Steve Bannon versus David Frum on the motion, "Be it resolved, the future of Western politics is populist, not liberal." So I thought I'd take a few minutes to share one perspective of someone who actually has purchased tickets and is going to the event. Hopefully this helps some of you who don't understand why anyone would pay to see such a spectacle to kind of get a view from the other side. So before I give you my reasons, just a few thoughts on the debate itself and the spectacle that's kind of come to surround it. First of all, the ideas that are being debated, populism, liberalism. If we look at the actual definitions, so I've chosen the Encyclopedia Britannica. If you look at the definition of liberalism, the definition of liberalism is political doctrine that takes protecting and enhancing the freedom of the individual to be at the central problem of politics. Liberals typically believe that government is necessary to protect individuals from being harmed by others, but they also recognize that government itself can pose a threat to liberty. As the revolutionary American pamphleteer Thomas Paine expressed it in Common Sense, government is at best a necessary evil. Laws, judges, and police are needed to secure the individual's life and liberty, but their coercive power may also be turned against him. The problem then is to devise a system that gives government the power necessary to protect individual liberty, but also prevents those who govern from abusing that power. And what about populism? Populism is defined as a political program or movement that champions the common person, usually by favorable contrast with an elite. Populism usually combines elements of the left and the right, opposing large business and financial interests, but also frequently being hostile to established socialist and labor parties. So right off the bat, it seems to me that juxtaposing populism and liberalism is slightly dishonest and is framed in such a way, I think, to set up that little bit of controversy and a little bit of, like I said, maybe spectacle, because populism exists on both sides. For example, when we see people like Bernie Sanders and his supporters, that can actually be considered leftist populism. So liberal here is described as the role of government, trade, and economic policy, foreign policy, and immigration. And I'll read you the actual description in a second. But so to me, this idea of juxtaposing populism with liberalism in itself is a little bit problematic. But I can see how it makes for a good debate. The description itself of the debate on the Munk website reads, "Throughout the Western world, politics is undergoing a sea change. Long-held notions of the role of government, trade, and economic policy, foreign policy, and immigration are being challenged by populist thinkers and movements. Does this surging populist agenda in Western nations signal a permanent shift in our politics? Or is it a passing phenomenon that will remain at the fringes of society and political power? Will our politics continue to be shaped by the post-war consensus on trade, inclusive national identity and globalization, or by the agenda of insurgent populist politics, parties, and leaders?" So there is a few things that I found problematic with this description. First was the role of government, long-held notions of the role of government. This change in this idea. Well, it seems to me that this has been a back and forth argument for a very long time. The role of government is not something that has been established at some point and we all just have come to agree about it, and all of a sudden now here come the populists and oh my, they want to turn everything on its head. No, we've been arguing about the role of government forever, and we continue to, and for very good reason, because nobody's really figured it out. So right there to me is a little bit questionable. Foreign policy, again, it's constantly changing. It's not something that's been established by the liberal order and now there's somebody coming along and saying they want to change it. Foreign policy has been a back and forth issue all the time. Every administration, every government, every country struggles with it. And the same goes for immigration. it sort of assumes that conservatism or populism doesn't exist in this reality of the liberal order, when realistically it does. The classical liberal sense, the definition of that, and the way that people want to live their lives in a free society, in a Western society, actually does not exclude conservatism and does not exclude populism. So okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, I do think that we have to remember that, because again, it's not so clear cut. But for the sake of argument, for the sake of the debate, it is what it is. So now what's happened is we've got all these community groups, and our leftist political party on the federal level in Canada, the New Democratic Party, the NDP, calling for the Munk Debates to cancel the event. Now, the event is happening tomorrow. They've put this call out earlier this week. The Munk Debates has said that they're not going to cancel it. It is going to go ahead. And it does make me wonder, though, how many people that are protesting this or saying that they wish this event to be canceled, how many of these people have actually listened to what Bannon has to say? I'm not saying you have to disagree with it. I'm not saying you have to agree with it. But what I'm saying is, what is it that you disagree about? Because it seems to me that most of the people featured in the stories that I read, or that the news pieces that I watch, it does just seem like people throw out a lot of words about racism and bigotry, etc., when I'm not really sure that they can point to anything specific that they would disagree with. So I would just caution, and I do find it interesting that it seems like people are getting their backs up about something that perhaps they haven't really dug into, or they don't really know what they're disagreeing with. And again, I'm not saying you need to agree with him. So it all seems a little bit panicked. Now, the latest thing since the horrible thing that happened in Pittsburgh last week at the synagogue shooting is that Bannon is somehow being connected to this violence, just like a lot of other right-wing figures. And their rhetoric is being blamed or connected to the kind of violence that we saw there. And this is, again, quite problematic, because if you look at a figure like Steve Bannon, if you just do some basic Google searching, you'll find articles from very well-respected news sources that will tell you that Steve Bannon is actually quite a figure within the Jewish community, or he's not Jewish, but a figure that's viewed by the Jewish community in various different ways. For example, some praise him for a very pro-Israeli stance, etc. So it's not like you can connect him and say he is an anti-Semite, and therefore, we disagree with him and he should not speak. He promotes all this hatred. So again, the situation is a little bit more nuanced than a lot of these voices that are saying that they would like to cancel the event are kind of putting out there. Okay, so given all that, why am I going? I'm going for 3 reasons. The first one is I really care about what happens in the world and in politics. I'm very interested in what happens in politics, especially American politics, because it's so important to the state of the world and to my country, Canada, to be honest. And so I actually want to hear what influential people have to say. I don't have to agree with them. It's the fact that they are important and they hold certain positions in power, or they get people to follow them, and they are the people who are shaping policy and opinion and etc. And so I want to be there. I want to hear these people speak. And so, like Bannon, whether you agree with him or not, he has become influential, and what he say matters. So in fact, we almost need to listen, again, whether we agree with him or not. Number 2, I'm going because, right-wing parties and populism is actually gaining strength around the world, as I'm sure you know. And so I want to know more about the movement. I mean, I read about it, but again, these definitions, like you see from any news story you watch, the definitions are shaped and they're reshaped on a daily basis. So we really need to understand it as much as possible and make up our own opinion. We need to know what it stands for. So, people can tell you this, this boogeyman or this boogeyman philosophy of populism, but I want to understand it. I want to know what it is. And third, it's the idea of a debate. I just simply love that. I love watching and hearing people debate topics. It helps me test my own beliefs while learning new things. I think we have to engage those people that we disagree with. In any debate, there's going to be someone you agree with and someone you disagree with, likely. I mean, there's also the possibility of just being a neutral bystander, but likely you're going to have someone that you disagree with, and that's a great thing. we can't just put our fingers in our ears and go, la, 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 I can't hear you. That's not a grown-up way of dealing with things. Deplatforming people only pushes them to the fringes where we don't get as much of an insight into what they're saying, what they're doing, who they're getting to follow them, etc. So I don't actually think that it's a great idea. And in fact, deplatforming people that you don't like may actually lead to sort of martyring them and giving them even more power and more popularity than you would like. For anyone opposed to the debate, or planning on going there tomorrow to protest, I really respect your viewpoint, but I want to leave you with a few questions. Number one, do you truly believe that shutting down this kind of event would be a victory for your cause? In today's day and age of the interwebs, figures like Bannon will continue to reach audiences, whether an event like this goes on or not. In fact, like I said, trying to shut this down was only bringing him more attention and more followers. So I'm not quite sure that it actually aligns with the cause of someone who disagrees with him. Number two, have you actually read or listened to anything that he has said? Do you actually know what you're opposing? If you have, fantastic. But I would guess that there are a lot of people, and we're all busy. We all have things to do, and we rely on other people to tell us about what's going on, and we usually know that we can trust certain people. But really, in today's day and age, we have to do the research. It's not good enough just to trust other people's opinions, because we know how this, as kids, we figured out how broken telephone works. But now in the current media landscape, it is really difficult to try and figure out the actual facts. So I would say, look it up before you actually say you oppose something. And the last thing I want to leave you with, and the question I have is, have you considered that this debate is actually featuring two conservatives? David Frum is considered a conservative. So what this means is that this is actually an exercise in conservatism grappling with its own issues and figuring out what its future looks like. So consider, this could be a very good thing. Instead of everyone nodding along in unison, this isn't a Steve Bannon rally. This is actually a challenge to his ideas. It could be viewed as an opportunity for the right to continue to adapt and refine itself, like any political system should, or political ideology. And who knows, this could be for the better. We hope it's for the better, and we should all hope it's for the better. Not people that support the right or against the right or are for Bannon or against Bannon. This should be an exercise in all of us discussing, coming together, agreeing, disagreeing, voicing our approvals. There are ways to. I've been at these events. People clap, people boo. There is ways to show your agreement, your disagreement, and you actually. So you vote on these on these motions. So at the beginning of the debate, we're going to vote whether we agree with the motion or not, and then after the debate, we're going to vote again, and it will show whether these people were able to effectively argue their cause. So I think that's the best way to go about things, and that's why I'm going. I'll be back after the debate to record another video to let you know what I thought of it and how it went. Till then, thank you very much for watching. Take care.